My first semester of college was unfortunately not a success. I started to feel really homesick about 2 weeks in, and it stayed that way the entire semester. It had reached November and I couldn't wait to come home and see my family and friends and basically just evaluate my future. About a week before my flight home, I started to have these strange dreams. I've always had nightmares, but for some reason I was always aware that I was dreaming, so they didn't really bother me. However, these ones were really affecting me and they were repetitive. The dream was that I would be laying in bed at my parents' house and I would start having this sensation as if there was a rope tied to my ankle and I was slowly being pulled towards my closet. In my dream, I would get up and walk over to the closet. I would set my hand on the ice-cold door handle and slowly open the door. As the door opened, black fog would pour out of the closet and I could see the silhouette of 2 people. I would then wake up in my college dorm room covered in sweat. I had this dream 4 separate nights before my flight home. When I landed at the airport, my best friend Jake and my older brother Jackie picked me up. I was so excited to be home that we all fell asleep on the living room couches. The next night, I got home late from being with my friends. I was so tired that I fell asleep the second my head hit the pillow. I woke up to my room being freezing cold. I checked my phone and it was 3 a.m. on the dot. I did not think much of it other than it was weird how cold my room was even though my electric heater was at the maximum. The next night the same thing happened. I woke up at 3 a.m. and it was freezing. Again, I didn't think much of it and went back to sleep. I woke up an hour later and my electric heater was off. And it was so cold it was as if I was sleeping on a bed of snow. I tried to go back to sleep, but I started feeling this pulling sensation coming from the closet. I got a little freaked out and decided to sleep in the living room. The next morning, my mum asked me why I was on the couches. I told her what happened and about my dreams. She basically told me not to worry about it, but she also broke the news that her Native American friend was sleeping in my room due to the brutal divorce she was going through. My mum told me once that her business partner was really spiritual. The week went by and I continued to sleep on the couch basically out of fear. My high school girlfriend named Kate had a grandmother, who we all called Gram, who was increasingly close to my mum. My mum was a masseuse, and Gram had retired from her profession of being a professional house cleaner. Gram's job may not sound glamorous, but she actually had a passion for detailing houses, and she basically owned an incredibly lucrative house cleaning company. Gram would clean the house once a week, and in return my mum would give her 2 massages. Gram was incredibly religious, and she was a die-hard born-again Christian and also very spiritual. On this particular Saturday morning, I was watching the Tottenham game with my dad and my brother. Gram walked down to the living room and requested that I follow her upstairs. We walked into the hallway to the bedrooms and she told me that she was sensing negative energy in my bedroom. I was a little bit freaked out, but I told her everything that had happened. She told me that if I gave her permission, she could pray the spirits away. My family and I are incredibly not religious. We sort of believe it's fairy tales, so I apprehensively said, "Yeah, sure." We walked into my room, and we stood side by side in front of my closet. She started saying things like, "Spirit, you are not welcome here. I am a person of God and I am telling you to leave." She said this a few times and my room instantly got really cold. And I started to get anxious. She kept saying it and I started to feel the pulling sensation. The door to my closet started to shake. Gram raised her voice and the door started shaking more aggressively. My room had that feeling you get when the tea kettle starts hissing and the water is boiling to maximum. All of a sudden, Gram stopped talking, the door stopped moving, and the energy in the room levelled out. I was seriously spooked. Gram and I kept this between us. I returned to finish my semester in Atlanta. About a week later, my mum called me. She said she had talked to her friend about what happened, and that her friend invited spirits into my bedroom to keep her company through her divorce. My mum basically told her that she's not comfortable having her sleep at the house, and that she had to find somewhere else to stay. They are still friends, but they did get a little distant considering the situation. When I was about 16, I went with my girlfriend's family on vacation. They lived for family camping trips in their beautiful camper. On this trip, there were 7 of us going, including Graham. It was the second night of the trip. We did the typical camping trip things, had a bonfire, grilled some food, played some games, and eventually we all went to sleep. The beds were set up so my ex-girlfriend, one of her brothers and I shared a king-size bed on the end of the camper. Graham had a single bed at the open end of our bed where our heads were. I was sleeping on the side closest to the door where there was a huge mesh window. While I was sleeping, I had a nightmare. The nightmare was that I was paralysed in my sleeping spot of the camper, completely frozen. I was looking out the mesh window and this completely black wolf with red eyes was barking at me. It was drooling and barking so loud that it was hurting my ears. I was so scared that I could not move. And it was staring right at me. I tilted my head to Graham's bed, and she was sitting up straight looking at the wolf. She started saying the power of Christ repels you. I looked back at the wolf and it started barking louder and edged closer to the camper. My dream felt so real and I started feeling teardrops falling from my eyes. I looked back at Graham and she started speaking in tongues. Suddenly I shot up fully awake. I was covered in sweat and I felt the teardrops trickling down my cheeks and my chin. The wolf was gone, but Graham was still sat up in her bed, speaking in tongues. And then she said the power of Christ repels you. At one point she stopped saying that and I watched her close her eyes and pray. When she stopped praying, she went back to sleep, and I stayed up the whole night completely freaked out. The next day I asked her what had happened, why she was saying these things, and why she was talking in tongues. And she said, "Darling, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I saw a demon barking at you last night, and I had to ask God to push him away." This next story is a story of my ex-girlfriend's imaginary friend growing up. We'll call her Kate for this one, and sorry Dan, but you're probably going to hate it.
No.
Kate was incredibly lonely as a child growing up. Her family were struggling with addiction issues and basically had her when they were too young. One day, Kate was walking behind the garage when she met someone named Pumpkin. Kate told me she did not think much of his appearance at the time, but when she described him now, it makes my skin crawl. He was a tall, skinny man, with a black tattered shirt and pants, skinny black shoes, long black hands, and for a head he had a jack-o'-lantern that looked like it had been hit with a baseball bat. She told me that she played with him every day. He would watch her play with toys and keep her company. She told her parents about Pumpkin, but they thought it was just her imagination. At one point, her parents told me that things got a little bit weird. Kate would be watching TV and her dad would sit next to her, and she would scream, "You sat on Pumpkin!" Another time her parents told me that Kate came home very muddy. When they asked why, Kate said, "I was playing in the woods with Pumpkin." Her parents still wrote it off as just her imagination, but they told her that she could not leave their yard. Kate told me that Pumpkin got really mad at her when she told her parents that he took her into the woods. Pumpkin told her that her parents hated her and that he wanted the two of them to float away together. He told her that if she swallowed a balloon, the balloon would blow up in her stomach and they would be able to float away. That weekend, Kate was at Graham's house. Graham was in the kitchen and heard Kate choking. Graham ran into the living room where Kate was, forced Kate's mouth open and pulled a balloon out. When she asked why, Kate, in tears, explained that her imaginary friend Pumpkin made her and that he would be really mad if they could not float away together. Graham asked if Pumpkin was at the house, and Kate said that Pumpkin was scared to go to Graham's house. Kate told Graham everything. Graham told Kate that Pumpkin was evil and that Kate needed to tell Pumpkin that she was a person of God and that he was not welcome anymore. The next day, Kate got home, she went outside and saw Pumpkin. She said to Pumpkin, "I am a person of God and you're not welcome here anymore." And he disintegrated into thin air. When I was 17, I went over to Kate's house. She got a call, said a few words and started crying hysterically. At this time, Graham was working part-time at a Christian preschool. On the phone, Graham told her that one of the teachers heard a student choking. When she ran over, the teacher pulled a balloon out of the girl's mouth. Gran was told the reason the student tried to swallow the balloon was that her imaginary friend Pumpkin told her that he wanted them to float away together.